Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today we're going to be modifying the Civivi Vision FG. And you might be saying, it looks like you've already modified it. I have. A while back, I modified it with some aluminum scales from somebody else, and I really like them. But today we're going to be adding some beautiful titanium scales from Original Goat. I cannot wait to get these on here. These other scales that I have on here were liner deletes, and it appears that these are also liner delete. We're going to find out. I've got the liners over here to the left, so if not, we'll put them back in there and I'll explain it afterwards. But these are spectacular, and I love that we have this perimeter line with the texturing on the inside versus the texturing all the way out to the lips here. These are going to be heavier, but truth be told, I kind of like the added heft of titanium. I also like the finish on these. Now, what we're doing essentially is adding scales that probably cost more than the knife itself. I don't care. This is hardly the first time that I've done that, right? And if you've modified knives before, then you've probably done this as well. But I love the Civivi Vision FG. I just don't love the original scale. So finding the absolute ideal scales for this thing is something that I really enjoy doing. I will link these scales and Original Goat scales in general down in the description so that you guys can check them out. Highly recommendable, and it's all made in the USA. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. Let's go ahead and get this started. Okay, so I've got them all together, and these are really impressive. I've got a couple of things to note. Number one, if you're wondering, what were those two little steel washers? So those, because there was a liner delete on the previous scales, the bearings had to ride on something. So these will not be in your Vision FG if you're, working with the factory setup. I forgot that and was trying to work them in, and I realized, what am I doing? Right, they're running on steel with the liners. This does make the knife substantially heavier because it's titanium on top of the steel liners. I don't mind that much. I'll weigh it for you guys real quick, but I know that a lot of you will. I carry EDC knives that are substantially heavier than this pretty often. Yeah, this is heavy. 5.1 ounces. Wow. I think it would be cool if Original Goat considered like a linerless version of these. I think that would be awesome. But it does bring the balance back quite a ways. So while it's still not a huge object, it does turn into a pretty heavy object. And that's something that I think a lot of people should know, because that's going to be a deal breaker for some people, for sure. The quality of the scales is insanely high, and the tolerances are insanely high. The lockup, I got it to be absolutely perfect, no blade play. I also got the action to be dropped shut, and I think I got the centering pretty close. I think I can tweak it a little tiny bit. It looks like it might be slightly off to the right, and I'm almost certain a tweak of the pivot and messing with the clip screws and the body screws will get that pretty on. It's actually coming a little closer. Did I tighten it too much? Yeah, I think I did. I think it's just a combination of messing with these screws. Something else to know while you are taking this apart, Civivi's, both their T6 and their T8 screws, whether you're working with the pivot or the body screws, they are not super deep. So you need to be aware of that. I'm going to try to find like a piece of paper I can fold up. Be aware of that, because these slip a little easier than some of the other screws that I have, dealt with here in just recent disassemblies. So just be super aware of that when you are taking these apart. I'm just trying to do a little bit of a centering trick while we are talking here. Also, the texturing on these is pretty aggressive. Now you'll notice that we do have, did I get it? It's pretty darn close. I think it's actually going to come back as soon as I loosen up the pivot here. So it'd be nice to get it absolutely on center. Did it move at all? Boy, it's pretty darn close. Pretty close, but still a little tiny bit off center. I honestly can't remember if this one was off center from the factory or not. There's a chance that it could have been. But it's, just giving you guys my experience here. But anyways, no blade play or anything at this point. No, I'm wrong. There is a little bit. What's going on here? Did I just under tighten it? That's too tight. Bring it back just a little bit. How are we now? There we go. Just wasn't quite down. So aggressive texturing here. There is a bald spot under the clip. I think that this could do with a nesting, like a better zone for nesting, because it just did not, well, it actually is. It's just a little tiny lip. I had to fight this a little bit to get it to fall into that little nesting spot. And every time I tightened the screws down, the clip wanted to like poke over. So maybe that nesting spot needs to be slightly deeper. But there is a little spot for it. I can see it there now, which is why I was fighting it. But you will definitely notice the texturing here. I mean, it is, if you're going to take this thing out and work with it, you're not going to drop it. This might be a little bit too aggressive for some people. In and out of the pocket, though, I'm actually wearing sweatpants right now. Pretty good. The smooth spot, that's definitely like the 95% of the contact is that smooth spot. So the texturing isn't going to mess with your pants too much, right? But yeah, it feels really good. A little bit of sound there, and that's from this, right, in between the liners. And it did this originally with the standard scales. It did it with the aluminum scales, the aftermarket aluminum scales that I had on, and it's doing it here now. So that's more of a Vision FG thing, but not too bad. It does feel really cool, and it definitely feels, it's like, I guess in the way that like heft makes you, it gives you this false sense of like increased durability. It feels really nice. It just makes me wish that I had like a bigger, more robust version of this with like an upgraded steel. But these are cool, and it'll make it fun to carry. They will definitely not be for everybody. Original Goat, I think you guys should seriously consider doing a liner delete version of these scales. So, I mean, it'll thin it up a little bit, and it'll reduce the weight by enough that it'll make a lot more people happy. For me, I think this is fine. They're definitely cool. These are going to be expensive, guys. These are USA titanium scales, and you'll hear a lot about, titanium's not all that expensive. All these companies are no, milling titanium like this in the USA is expensive, especially when you are contouring it and texturing it and you're precision milling it, right? If the costs are lower for someone, it means that they're not doing all of these things, right? They're just titanium is the part of the equation that they're focusing on, right? So yeah, it's going to be expensive. So for a lot of reasons, these aren't going to be for a lot of people, but this was fun. I wanted to put it together and show you guys. So that's going to be it for today. I don't think I have really anything else to add to this. Everybody knows this, right? You may have seen it a little bit in the hyperlapse. You really got to be careful when you're pulling off those. If you do pull, you don't need to pull off the liners, right? But if you do, for some reason, have to take off the liners, just know that super lock is housing a coil spring, a lot like the Shark Lock. So as soon as you take that off, there's a chance that primed spring is going to fly across the room, and you might lose it. It got away from me a couple of times, but fortunately we found it. So just be aware of that. It's really not that difficult of a process. Lining up the pivot can be a little bit tricky, right? So you kind of have to pull down on the super lock and adjust it and push it through. But this should sink in and become almost flush, just barely above, right? Just the beveled edges of that pivot are above there. But everything else fits beautiful. I mean, like really the fit and finish on these is really nice. I'm definitely impressed with the overall quality. Another note to Original Goat, I think you should knock this texturing down just a bit. It is really aggressive. I mean, it looks great. It's definitely finished, but I think their goal here was just to make it super duper aggressive compared with the original goat scales on these are aluminum scales on my stitch here. This is much less aggressive, but still enough that it's functional. I think this texturing, however you did that, would probably be a little bit better. Okay, that's it today, guys. Thanks so much. Links for this stuff down in the description if you want to check it out. Thanks again to Original Goat. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.